Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's explainer, where we are digging into what has to be one of the absolute wildest market cycles in the entire digital collectible space. We're talking about the meteoric rise, the really brutal fall, and the completely unexpected comeback of the Bored Ape Yacht Club. If you've been around the crypto block, you know this isn't just a story about digital art, not even close. It's really a masterclass in market psychology, community resilience, and how we are constantly redefining what digital ownership even means. So let's jump in and look at the numbers that define this crazy ride. $400,000. Literally, let that sink in for a second. Back in early 2022, that number was the absolute minimum entry fee to get your hands on just one of these pixelated apes. It's wild to think about now, but these unique, algorithmically generated images, they weren't just JPEGs. They were the ultimate digital flex. You had massive celebrities, Justin Bieber, Eminem, Paris Hilton, showing them off everywhere. But, as we all know, gravity always wins. The market suffered a massive, crushing blow, and honestly, a lot of people just totally wrote off the entire NFT dream as dead. But here's the thing. Fast forward to today, and the landscape is shifting all over again, which brings us to this massive central mystery. How on earth are these digital primates clawing their way back to relevance? Seriously, what is fueling this resurrection in 2023 and 2024 when all the critics said it was game over? To really wrap our heads around this whole phoenix-like rebirth, we need to map out exactly how we got here in the first place. So let's start with phase one, the rise and fall. Okay, the sheer volatility here is just staggering. Yuga Labs launches the collection in April 2021. By early 2022, you've got this insane cocktail of celebrity hype and private exclusive community events, and the market absolutely peaks. We're talking 100 Ethereum just to get in the door. No way, right? But then the macro environment completely flips. Interest rates shoot up, the broader crypto market tanks, and we hit a brutal bear phase. By late 2022, that value was literally cut in half, down to around 50 Ethereum, and trading volume basically just vanishes. But then, look at early 2024. It's undeniably clawing its way back, rebounding to the 70 to 80 Ethereum mark. And really quickly, just to make sure we're totally aligned on the metrics for these massive swings, we're looking at the floor price. That is simply the absolute lowest price you can buy an NFT for in a specific collection. It's the baseline. So when that floor plummeted from 100 to 50 Ethereum, the cheapest possible ticket to the Yacht Club got slashed in half. Now that we have that baseline locked in, let's figure out what is actively driving that price back up right now. Moving right along to phase two, driving the ape comeback. So the crucial point here is that this resurgence is absolutely not happening in a vacuum. It is essentially a perfect storm of 5 very specific factors. First up, you have the broader crypto market recovering, right? With Bitcoin stabilizing up above $60,000, a ton of liquidity and basic confidence is flowing right back into the ecosystem. Second is nostalgia. People are looking at Bored Apes as this sort of blue-chip cultural touchstone from the 2021 boom. Third, Yuga Labs just hasn't stopped building. Fourth, the community strength is insane, especially on platforms like Discord, and you have these whales, these high-net-worth traders swooping in to buy the discount. And lastly, you just can't ignore the return of FOMO and speculative appetite. Traders see the momentum, and they are jumping back in for the gains. And speaking of Yuga Labs continuously building, they actually locked in a massive collaboration with Gucci to create ape-themed physical products. I mean, that is a major strategic pivot. They are actively bridging that gap between digital exclusivity and tangible real-world value. It goes way beyond just pixelated avatars at this point. It's about pushing out into the mainstream and building a full-on lifestyle brand. Which brings us to phase 3, real stories, real stakes. Let's actually humanize this data for a second and look at the real people making these trades. Take Sarah. She represents a true second chance story. She got in super early in 2021, buying for just 2 Ethereum, which was roughly $8,000 at the time. She held strong right through the devastating 2022 crash, stayed active in the community, and she didn't panic sell. Well, that resilience paid off because she recently got an offer for 6 Ethereum, tripling her initial investment. Then, on the flip side, you have Mike taking a totally calculated risk. He completely missed the hype cycle in 2021. Instead, he waited, bought the dip in 2023, and scooped up 2 apes for 90 Ethereum. By mid-2024, his strategic play saw a 30% appreciation. So you have Sarah, the diamond-handed holder, and Mike, the incredibly strategic cycle-playing investor. And Mike actually gave a quote that brilliantly sums up that veteran trader mindset. He said, "I've been in crypto long enough to know that markets are cyclical. I figured they'd come back." He looked past the hype and saw that Bored Apes had fundamentally transcended just being an NFT. They had become a recognized brand. And honestly, it is exactly that analytical, unemotional strategy that's acting as the engine for this whole phoenix rebirth in the market.
All right, Phase 4, NFT market ripple effects.
Now, we have to ask, what does this actually mean for the rest of the space? Well, this revival is essentially a bellwether for the entire NFT ecosystem. Here are the big takeaways. First, the established blue-chip collections, think BAYC, CryptoPunks, Azuki, they are always going to be the absolute first to recover when the market turns bullish. They set the tone. Second, utility and community, they aren't optional anymore. If you want to survive a crash, you have to offer real-world benefits. Third, even with all this maturing, let's be real, speculation and high volatility are absolutely still the primary drivers. And finally, with these high-fashion luxury partnerships, we are seeing mainstream adoption slowly creeping in, which could finally bring a whole wave of non-crypto native buyers into the mix. And finally, Phase 5, challenges and future outlook. Of course, we have to keep a totally balanced view here, because there are some very real inherent risks in this space. Number one is market fragility. Honestly, a sudden macroeconomic shock or just a sharp drop in Bitcoin could send NFT prices tumbling right back down. It's fragile. Second is global regulatory uncertainty. Governments are still scrambling to figure out how to even classify these assets. Third, community fatigue. I mean, if creators don't deliver on their massive promises, even the most loyal communities will eventually just burn out. And finally, the competition is absolutely fierce. New projects are launching literally every single day, all desperately trying to steal the spotlight. So how exactly does a project outrun those kinds of risks? Well, you expand the horizon. If you look at the roadmap, it all points toward building real utility, beyond just having a cool profile picture. Yuga Labs is aggressively pushing out their other side metaverse, and they're heavily integrating into gaming and virtual reality. The ultimate goal is to transition these from static, passive collectibles into fully functional digital assets that actually have continuous, interactive use cases.
Which leaves us with one pretty massive question to wrap up today's explainer. The incredible rise, fall, and return of the Bored Ape Yacht Club absolutely proves the resilience of this community, but it also proves the rules of the game are changing fast. So, looking at the data we just covered, the new push for real-world utility, and of course, those enduring risks, are you holding a Bored Ape, or are we simply witnessing a brand new chapter for how we value digital collectibles? It's an incredibly fascinating space, and whatever happens next, it's for sure a chapter worth keeping an eye on. Thanks so much for learning with us today.